You.
Oh yeah, I talk with my hands anyway,
And
so
me too.
I don't worry about that.
So, hey everybody, this is Conversations with Kate back after a hiatus. And I am so excited, and I mean this sincerely, like so excited to be here with Jacquette Timmons. Now, for those of you who have not necessarily come across her and her work yet, oh my God, are you in for a fun ride? First of all. Secondly, she is sort of a money and relationships whisperer. The way I look at it is she was one of the first people who I saw out there in the world talking about the emotional component of our relationships with money and not just looking at it as spreadsheets or formulas or, follow this blueprint and you'll get rich. It was more about, hey, let's really look at our actual relationship with money, not the relationship we wish we had, the actual stuff. And I think I actually came across you, Jacquette, in you were in one of those, 20 people talking for an hour things, and a friend of mine gave me access, and I just on that day, you happened to be one of three people, um, and you came on this screen with this big laugh and this big hair and this I was like like holy cow like that's better like because everybody else was like so serious and this is like serious talk, we're talking money now, we have to get
Oh
serious.
my god.
And I thought, oh thank God, here's some real energy about this that feels human and humane and delightful. So when I think of you, I think of you as someone who, like, you always bring me joy. So anyway, I immediately signed up for Jacquette's mailing list at that moment. Like, I don't even think I finished watching her. I think I went and signed up. And they're beautiful, and, go there, find her. I'll put all of her contact information in with a video. But today, so one of these, so
Can I get you with me and have you do my intros? Because oh my god, that is just a really warm welcome. Thank you.
oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. And so Jacquette and I have had this really funny time scheduling where we had another date and literally there were guys outside with chainsaws. Like, I'm not even joking, taking down trees to clear the way for the power lines. I was like, okay, we can't, I can't, there's no way I'm going to be able to focus. So here we are finally, Friday, lunchtime. We're doing it. Um,
Yes.
but way back when we first started talking about talking, one of the things that came up from a newsletter that she had sent out, but it's not a newsletter, guys, it's not. It's more like an invitation to reevaluate where you are in your relationship with money. It's not a newsletter. It's not like this is what I'm doing. It's more like, hey, as human beings, this is what we're doing. And one of the things that came out, like jumped off the page for me during that mailing was this idea that we don't need to be saved. And this doesn't mean like, oh, saved. I'm talking about like learning to save ourselves. And I've got a 6.5-year-old kid, a beautiful daughter, and she is all about, Wonder Woman getting saved by Superman. She's all about the princess getting saved by the prince. And I said, why can't she save herself? Like, what's wrong
Right.
with that? But she's 6 and she's already imprinted that the saving is an external thing. And I thought, oh my God, no, 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 no. This isn't the world
Mhm.
that I want her to envision and then create for herself. So Jacquette and I were just talking about, starting point for the conversation, and we decided that is just as relevant now as it was back in February. Um, so, do you want to jump in with some
Yeah.
thoughts, ideas?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess to kind of like anchor where that came from for me
Mm-hmm.
is we were bumping up against the start of Women's History Month,
Mm,
and it was a very specific commercial that I saw, and this commercial, uh, highlighted economic empowerment, if you
mm,
will, and it had a series of different people, I guess, to kind of reflect diversity. And the thing that just was like, what's that phrase? The craw, I think. It just really kind of pissed me off. Was it had a woman who you would probably, from a demographic standpoint, describe as a Western woman,
mm,
holding her hand behind her and extending it to the woman behind her. But the woman behind her was from an Eastern culture.
gotcha.
And the thing that got me is that if that gesture was really simply about, let me help my sister, cool. But it's all of the other things that were unspoken that really bothered me in terms of, I'm a Western woman, I have all the answers, and I'm going to show you how you can help yourself.
Yeah,
And
boy.
I thought, well, that's a problem because it is not that people don't have the capacity on their own for self actualization. More than likely, it is a lot of structural things that prevent that from occurring.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wanted to explore in terms of how do we interact with our money, and how do we adopt that mindset without even realizing that we are adopting that mindset. And if we do realize it, then how do we, if we want to make another choice, how do we go about doing that? And so that's where that all came from, and that sparked a lot of conversation.
I bet it did. It did inside my own self. But even, look, even the gesture that you describe, one of the things that's been so great about these conversations that I've been having with folks is that every single time I have a conversation with somebody, my perception changes, broadens, shifts, and I can feel it in my brain in this beautiful way that is like one of my ecstasies, right? It's like, oh, I see what I'm doing there. And often that is me reflecting on my own way in the world and things that I've been blinded to. Like I just wasn't aware. Like I wasn't aware. And as soon as you described that image, the first thing I thought is, if it was truly sisters helping sisters, why aren't they facing each other? So that's my first thought, right? Which is a different thought. I'm
Yes.
just going to,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
So,
totally.
so it's just such an interesting, so as you went on to describe that image more fully, and I felt myself going, oh, okay, oh, okay. And there's this feeling of like, okay, yep, there's another one.
Yep.
I have these, one of the problems with biases and assumptions is so many of them are unconscious.
Yes. Yes.
So there's first this, first first it takes awareness or whatever it is. It's like, oh, but that awareness is such a bastard. Oh, God.
Well, yeah, because what ends up happening is, a part of the awareness is then you are confronted with the awareness, and then that, kind of seeps into judgment. And so, how the challenge is, how do you amplify your awareness without there being judgment about the awareness or about the fact that you thought a particular way before that moment that the shift happened?
And the shit happened. The
Yes,
shift and the
that
shit.
too.
But one of the things that I also just watched, I watched myself do, and then I'm trying to now to consciously undo, is it's not about me, right? This is me with me, yes. But then this is about, this isn't about me. I mean, this is the interesting part, right? So, like, hello.
When you say that, tell me a little bit more. When you say it's not about you.
Okay, so I can take this learning moment and say, well, I got what I needed from this conversation, and not quite, but and just sort of pack up my bags and but the fact is that most of the problems with these assumptions and biases is that we make whatever it is about us
Right.
as instead of a we, instead of an us, instead of a you, and how can I best support you? How can we best support each other? I mean, there's this bigger us, we, that's really important. And one of the problems with shame and stuff like that is it's so personal. It's like it's a retraction, right?
Yes.
You take it
Yes.
in and you go, oh, damn,
Right.
I
Right.
had it wrong, and ugh. And it's instead of an expansion, which is help me open my awareness. Don't help me open my awareness. Help me open my awareness. All right, and then be able to be more present
Right.
for the greater good. And it's just such an interesting little feeling. It's like that
It's a
retraction.
dance.
Yeah, it's a dance. It is a dance, but it's kind of it's an annoying dance. I just like to say that. Okay, so anyway, I'm here for you still. I was reading this thing the other day about, sort of like, dear white people, please stop spending so much time apologizing for your ancestors and start changing your behavior. you know, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, okay, I'm trying, I'm really trying, I'm really, really trying. But with that in mind, it is not up to the world to heal me. It is up to me to heal myself and bring my
Exactly.
best, whatever that is at any given moment,
Right.
to the world. So, with that
Right.
in mind, here we are. Okay, so one of the things that I wonder about with this idea of sort of the savior mentality is also so dangerous. I got something and I'll help you. You need my help, I'll help you.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever the you is. And I wonder how do we extricate ourselves from that? Like, how we as a culture. I mean, like, because there's all sides of that all are playing, otherwise it wouldn't work, right?
Yes. So I think part of the challenge there is to let's look at concentric circles, if we will, and look at the outermost, the bigger
Mm-hmm.
one, as our society at large. But then the next layer that's a little bit smaller
Mm-hmm.
is perhaps your social circle,
Mm-hmm.
and then the one that's even smaller than that is your family and or your friends, and then the one that's smaller than that is your family.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we begin to just walk in an awareness of my language, my actions,
Mm-hmm.
and to what extent am I behaving as I'm the one with all of the answers in our family, and work on that,
Mm-hmm.
and then look at that with regards to friends, and then look at that with regards to your larger community, maybe your neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe look at that in terms of then how could that impact your contribution to discussions around policy changes and laws. I think don't start all the way out here. Start with a much smaller container
Mm-hmm.
and see the impact that you are having, and seeing how you need to perhaps adjust and shift your language, whether it's verbal or body language, and use that as a way of informing the conversation. I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we get excited about wanting to make a change, especially when that self-awareness is initially heightened,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to go straight to the outer circle when we'd have much more impact if we
Mm-hmm.
started much smaller and then grew out.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you. I also, um, there's also a question I always have about introversion, because even though I do these conversations, I'm a flaming introvert. Um, and recognizing that as we all work through our processes, these more private ones, ourselves with ourselves, the semi-private
Mm-hmm.
ones, ourselves with our families, um, there also comes a moment, at least in my own work, where I hit a barrier that's sort of my introversion barrier. It's like, how can I extend beyond my introversion um, into a place of, perhaps discomfort, but without becoming paralyzed. There's always that question as I hit those. There's certain barriers like that, for me anyway, in various forms of. I don't want to use the word activism per se, because that's not fair. Use the word engagement.
Okay.
Engagement. And I just wonder sometimes, like, when I meet someone like you, it's very easy for me to look at you and say, "Oh yeah, she's got this because she's so obviously extroverted." I'm saying obviously extroverted. You may not be, but you have this beautiful social presence. You have this, ability and this energy and this, incredible way of articulating. It's like, wow, yeah, if I had that, I could do that too. But it's like, but I have this. So, what purposes and beauty can I bring to the world through this instrument? With its perceived limitations. And so I just jumped a little bit from the conversation about sort of starting in our smaller sphere to address, how to make the changes, perhaps in language and behavior. I don't even want to talk about how much work I have to do there. It's like, so I jumped from it because I'm like, yeah, I got it. And I have a feeling that people listening in on the conversation, there's at least half of the people who are listening who are like, oh God.
Well, it's so funny because as I was listening to you, what I heard is something that I think we all do to a certain extent.
Mm.
And that is instead of embracing who we are in all of our aspects and looking at it as how can that be a springboard,
Hmm.
we hone in on what we perceive as the weakness of that.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
so in this conversation right now, the whole idea of being an introvert and
Hmm.
how that might be limiting. And I think of, a networking event.
Hmm.
Well, I would think that at a networking event, you're probably going to be the one that will develop the most deeply connected connections because you're not concerned with meeting everybody.
Boy, that's true.
As the introvert, you're going to want to just have one or two, maybe three conversations. And who knows, because you're only talking to that very limited number of people, that gives you an
Hmm.
opportunity to then at least start off with a deeper point of connection with that person. So what I guess what I'm trying to get to
Yeah.
is the things that we often think of as our limitations are actually our strengths, and we don't tap into that enough when it comes to actually saving ourselves.
Hmm.
So I'll give a really good example. I think I'm probably an ambivert. I am definitely very, very social, but I also can be really cool without talking to somebody for a whole day. Like I'm all good with that. All good with that. Um, but I used to be really self conscious. Look, I've only worked in financial services and I've been in this industry for, oh God, I can't even calculate now, 1986. So a long time. And I am who I am. But I used to feel really self conscious and think that, because I'm in financial services, I have to be, strictly buttoned up and I can't do this and I can't be expressive and I can't be uh, not loud in a loud way, but I can't be loud, if you will.
Hmm.
And it took somebody else saying, but no, that's what's beautiful about it is because
Yep.
because you are the way that you are, that is what allows people to face something that can be really intimidating, that can be really stressful, and
Hmm.
exhale and realize, okay, I don't have to freak out. Yes, it's a serious topic, but I don't have to approach it with all of this intensity.
Hmm.
It took me a really long time to embrace that. And so I think sometimes the things that we view as our as a constraint
Hmm.
is actually the thing that attracts us to the people that are attracted to us.
Hmm. I believe that. I believe that. That feels really true to me. It does. It's harder for me to see in me, of course. You
Well,
know.
that's always the case, right? That's always the case. We're always, it's something quote unquote that's a strength or something that we need to work on. It always comes to light because somebody else has served as that mirror,
Yep.
and they've revealed the blind spot for good or bad.
It's always for good. No, this is.
Good,
I,
that's right.
I truly believe this is always for good.
True.
So I finally learned to embrace my sensitivity as a superpower.
Uh-huh.
And I have a highly sensitive daughter, and I'm trying to raise her recognizing
Uh-huh.
that it is a superpower. I said, listen, you're going to notice things other people don't notice. You're going to hear things other people don't hear. You're going to feel things other people don't feel. You're going to get a sense of a room in a way that
Uh-huh.
other people aren't going to get. I said, but there's another side of that, which is we need to do some serious self-care.
Yes.
When you're full up and you're done, even if no one else knows that, you need to go take care of yourself. And there was this really wonderful opportunity I have to sort of reparent in some ways. The pieces
Mhm.
of me that I feel like I spent so much time feeling embarrassed about, I'm now able to say, okay, listen, you, this other person who has this thing, this is a really cool thing. And then I can hear myself say it and say, okay, yeah, it is a cool thing. It is a
Right.
cool thing.
Yep.
Um,
Totally.
so some of those things I'm willing to own. So I hear you.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I also know that in the work you've been doing, lately with some of the writing that you were doing lately that I took note of in my flailing through my non-work life. It's like which has just consumed me lately. But there's this thing you've been talking about in terms of sort of, again, this comes to strengths and weaknesses, where it's moving towards like focus on your strengths. Recognize the weakness. It's not like you're not recognizing it, but focus on the strength. And so again, I think that right now what we're talking about is sort of the repositioning of those ideas, right? But can you talk a little bit about how that kind of focusing on your strengths has to do with this idea of sort of saving ourselves, this not needing to be saved idea?
Yeah, totally. And I think I can also connect it back to something that you just alluded to, which is this whole idea of self-care, because I think that they're all connected. I think that we live in a society that tends to amplify all of the things that you do wrong. And so part of self-care is investing the time to give yourself credit for the things that you do well and recognize that. And, wherever you might feel that you are, not performing as highly as you would like to, take a step back and think about, well, where am I performing really well? And whatever it is that I am doing in that space, how can I apply it to the area that I don't feel like I am doing really well? So I think that kind of speaks to the whole notion of combining focusing on your strengths with saving yourself and the whole idea of self-care. But I do think that one of the responsibilities that we have is to make sure that the people in our lives are indeed practicing self-care. So it's not just enough for you to make sure that you're eating well, that you're exercising, that you are, well rested, that you are doing whatever it is that helps you to show up 100%. You also need to make sure when you get together again with your family and your friends, that one of the questions that you ask is, so what are you doing to take care of yourself? That is a question that I think is not asked enough in our more intimate circles. And I think if we did put it on the table a little bit more often, that would provide an opportunity for us to have a conversation around not only sorry, I have a cat that just about knocked something over.
Good catch is what I say. Ninja-like reflexes.
Exactly. It's like, I want to get in on this conversation, but I don't want to walk across your laptop, so let me do this. Oh my God. And so now I lost my train of thought. But what I was saying in essence is that I think we need to include more often than we probably do a question around making sure that the people that we care about, the people that we know well enough to be sitting at a table with, to ask them what are they doing to take care of themselves. Because not only does that then open up a conversation for ideas in terms of you might be doing something that I'm not, that I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, I should try that. But it also then makes it brings it higher up in someone's consciousness if they're not doing it, that is an important part.
I don't know why, but self-care feels like such a luxury.
Yes.
As opposed to a necessity. You know what I mean? It feels like bonbons and...
Yeah. It's true. And it's so funny because, so when I tend to write in themes. And so the self-care was right around the whole notion of we don't need to be saved. And it was amazing, again, how many people responded to that and how many people responded from the standpoint of thinking that self-care was limited to, well, when I go and get a massage or when I go and get a mani-pedi, or like when you do something that feels, quote unquote, like you said, luxurious or indulgent, as opposed to, I am not going to answer emails until I do A, B, and C, or D, because that's my way of protecting my time. That's self-care, right?
Yes. No, this is exactly it. But it's so hard to frame it that way. That's so smart. Yep. That's so smart.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. See, and also it's so hard to even give ourselves permission to do that because especially as, folks who have their own businesses or whatever, I mean, there's this feeling of needing to perpetually be on call.
Yes.
As a parent, perpetually being on call, there's like I need to be accessible all the time to anyone, right? Anyone and
Hmm.
everyone who might need me for something, because I don't want to miss an opportunity. I don't want to miss an opportunity to be supportive, but I also don't want to miss a financial opportunity. It's like fear of missing out is such a bastard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's this feeling now that, in this idea of like, how do we do our best work? And
Yeah.
and one of the ways to do that is to make some limits. It's like a river without banks isn't a river; it's a swamp, right? It's like so.
I mean, I think boundaries,
Yeah.
uh, having boundaries is something that is typically viewed as negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to change that
Mm-hmm.
narrative and really look at it as, no, that's a really good thing.
Yep.
That's a really good thing. And, I get it when you were talking about, the client piece. Sometimes I'll get an email and I'll feel like, oh my God, I got to respond right away. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, nope, that person sent that email then because that's what they needed to do to get it off of their to-do list. It does not become an immediate thing that requires my attention unless it is an emergency, which
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10 it is not.
Mm-hmm.
So I will deal with that when I am dealing with email. Like, I don't have to let it interrupt my flow of what I am doing. But sometimes that self-talk is the kind of thing you have to go through to
Yep.
like justify, like, okay, no, it's good if I wait. It can wait an hour, it can wait a couple of hours. Sometimes we have to have that self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's another part of self-care.
Mm-hmm.
What is that conversation that you are having silently? And
Oh yeah.
is that conversation one that is uplifting you and helping to propel you forward? Or is it one that is causing you to shrink down? And if it's causing you to shrink down, why? Like, maybe sit in that posture
Mm-hmm.
and let that posture give you some feedback and some clues about what you still need to work on.
Mm.
But you got to get out of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Boy, that's really good advice. It's also really, this is part of the self-awareness piece, right? It's like reacting as opposed to responding. This idea of building in that gap.
Mm-hmm.
So, so
Mm-hmm.
our video has just gone a little wonky. So I don't know what's happening there, but
Oh,
outside
I think
world, you've gone into an abstract painting, which is like quite lovely, but not. So no, you're back.
thank you.
You're back now. I don't know what's going to happen with the recording, but we'll see. Um, well,
Okay.
we are right about at the end of the 30 minutes or so. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close? This has been so terrific. I can't even begin to tell you. But is there anything that feels like a dangling participle?
Well, while I'm thinking about that, what has been so terrific for you?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Um, Having a conversation that can follow its own path, I always love that. But the other thing that I really like is the idea that somehow, in spite of letting the conversation take its path wherever it wanted, the theme somehow managed to come along. I mean, and this idea of sort of a reflection, awareness, and application, sort of, but having that not be a device of self-torture,
Yes.
but to have it be instead like taking what works and seeing where else I can apply that. And I think that is both a very personal thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be a very a much more global thing. It's like, okay, so instead of just like where is it all sucking, it's like where are we succeeding, and to just not lose sight of that too, because it's so
Right.
easy to get lost in the what doesn't feel good, what doesn't, what's not working, the various traumas of, the past and the present.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, I think that just the reminder to sort of look for the light and help let that inform us, but also your invitation to sit with discomfort. It's something that Andrea Schroeder also talked to me about in one of the previous conversations with Kate, as discomfort being such a great teacher. If we allow
Totally.
it to, and
Yes.
oh man,
Yes.
I dodge and weave. I look like a prize fighter. I'm like, I don't want to do the discomfort. I'll do anything. I'll be so uncomfortable to avoid the discomfort. And in fact, there's so oftentimes if you just sit and say what, It's like
There's a lot of wisdom.
there's stuff, and we can then
There's
do it differently, and we don't have to be
Yep.
deal with that discomfort again. So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
there's a lot of wisdom in discomfort. And in fact, um, a book that really helped me to see that
Hmm.
is a book called The Wisdom of No Escape by
Oh,
Pema Chodron. Um,
Pima.
yes. So if that is not in your library, for those that are watching, listening, it ought to be in your library. Um, and read it when things are good, but really read it when things are not so good, because it will just help you to process it and to alter your relationship. So just like, a lot of my work is around helping people be intentional about their relationship with money. What that book helped me with is being intentional about your relationship with pain and discomfort,
Oh boy.
and how to reframe that, and how when you try to push through something too quickly, you miss out on the wisdom, you miss out on the clues that can help you do things differently. And so I would say the thing that there are a lot of parallels
Hmm.
between that and money. So if there are any frustrations that you have, if there are questions that you have, if there are challenges that you have, sit with it for a moment and
Hmm.
say, what's the source of that? Like, what's truly the source of it? So that you're fixing the root of the issue
Yeah.
and not just the symptom
Hmm.
that is causing the frustration, the stress, the challenge, or the question. Because if you sit with it for a moment, you'll experience far greater benefits from sitting with it and then moving, as opposed to moving.
I just think that's so true. Although I don't do it very often, I do see the truth in it.
Well, we're all a work in progress. We're all a work in
Yes, we are.
progress.
Well,
So
thank
we have to
goodness
own that.
too. Yeah, but thank
Well,
goodness
yeah.
too, because growth can be, as I said in the beginning of our conversation, that moment when I had that like feeling of the perspective shift is literally an exquisite sensation. And if I can just remember that learning feels that way to me, it can feel that way to me. It can be about this other stuff too. Okay.
Yes. Yes, totally.
So happy listeners, I'm going to I'll find that book on Amazon and post a link just for the fun of it. It won't be an affiliate link; it'll be just a link. So just do with it what you will. But Jacquette, oh my gosh, thank you so much
Oh, thank you. I
for
really appreciate
all of
it.
this. This has been just such a riot. Jacquette and I had a phone conversation, and I thought, oh my God, we're gonna like blow the microphones out. Like, so I'm gonna put a warning in the little thing that goes,
I
that
know, right?
be like,
Don't listen high, because we both laugh. We have hearty laughs.
like, turn it down. Like, oh my God.
Yep.
But I knew I was gonna love this, and I have. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you
And
so much. I have as well.
oh
Thank
my
you.
goodness. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording now, and if you want to hang out, we'll talk for a sec. And
Okay, cool.
everybody else, look for Jacquette's information in the blurb. And oh, I'm so glad this has been so fun. Thank you.
Thank you.